During these times, what are we all here for? What are we all doing? What's the purpose? What's the highest perspective of why we are here at this time on planet Earth?
This is much of the goodness of the question, and you have been thinking this is a big of the question, but this is just of the question. It is of the big question and of the small question, of every question that's around. And when we are receiving into the resonant field, we can be hearing this question by many of the peoples are speaking of this question. Why is it that I am being here, Ameed? What is it that called me to be here in this of the moment?
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of Galactic Guidance. Hello, Marcus Bird.
Hello, Eleni. How are you? That was very formal. I sort of went, yes, very formal.
You've got such a lovely surname. Why not say it?
Oh, well, why not? True. Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Welcome.
Yay.
And excited to hear what's going to come through your channel today.
Yes. It'll be interesting. Do you have questions? Or are we going
I can have a question. Yeah, so
we'll see what happens. I don't know.
See what happens.
Yeah.
I do have a big question, but let's just see what comes through with Ameed first.
I like big questions. Maybe we'll do big questions. She had a big, sort of download this morning, so maybe she's run out of words, or you know what she's like. She just talks a lot generally, but anyway, let's just see what happens. So
yeah, I do have a big question. So let's see what comes through.
All right, let's do that. I'll see you on the other side.
Okay. All right. And Marcus is now going into his state where he's then able to channel Ameed. Ameed is a higher dimensional being from an advanced planet in the Lyra star system who will come through. She's a female energy. And if you want to hear the story about how Marcus started to channel Ameed, have a look at episode 1, which is fascinating. He's been doing this for a good 30 years.
Much of the joyness that we are being in this of the moment, Miss Eleni, we are much of the joyness and much of the love to be here in this of the sacred moment of the connection, so that we can be of the communication, be of the support, be of the assistance in this of the moment. Much love.
Oh, much love to you, Ameed. So much love to you. I have a big question for you this week. It's a question that gets talked about a lot in the spiritual community, but I would just like to have your perspective, which is, during these times, what are we all here for? What are we all doing? What's the purpose? What's the highest perspective of why we are here at this time on planet Earth?
This is much of the goodness of the question, and you have been thinking this is a big of the question, but this is just of the question. It is of the big question and of the small question, of every question that's around. And when we are receiving into the resonant field, we can be hearing this question by many of the peoples are speaking of this question. Why is it that I am being here, Ameed? What is it that called me to be here in this of the moment? There are a couple of the aspects that we wish to be of the sharing in response to this of the question. One of the response is that in of a universal perspective, if we go off to the to be speaking of your question to the biggest aspect of this reality, then we would be talking of the expansion of the consciousness, expansion of the conscious universal construct, that every being and every aspect within of the universe is here to be of the assistance, to be of the expanding of the consciousness. When you are looking at the universe, and when your scientific peoples are speaking of the universe, They are speaking that the universe is being in an expansive state of the reality scape. And we are here to tell you that this expansion is the expansion of the consciousness state, and that everything in of the universe is of a consciousness matter. You are thinking that consciousness is just from a thinking point of the view, just from the mindscape of the view, but consciousness is much more of the broader aspect than you are being thinking. That every aspect from of the membrane of the universe, from the vibration and the frequency and the energy of the universe, right through to the what you're calling of the matter objects, are all a representation of universal consciousness state. If we are sitting here and we are thinking how we are like Ameed, and how is Ameed like us, we are then talking of the consciousness state. We are what you would call a living of the example of the consciousness state of the universal construct. So in of the biggest picture, what you are being doing here is assisting in the universe to be of the expanding, to assist in the expansion of the consciousness state. But if we are coming down onto the theme park that you are being calling of the earth, we are looking at what is it that brought you to this place in this of the moment. And when we were standing together on the other side of the veil as you be speaking, we were talking about what you are here to be of the doing. And what we are seeing in this of the theme park, this of the experiment, in this of the energetic nature of this solar of the system, is that in this moment, in this time, there is a what you'd be calling of a breaking of the freedom. There's a breaking of the freedom to stop in the be stopping in the contraction of the consciousness field here on the earth plane, if you will. You are here to help in the expansion of the consciousness, and therefore the reversing of the constriction of the consciousness state that has been much of the playing out throughout this theme park for many of the the earth of the years. There has been a drop-in of the consciousness state, and part of the existence of this planetary construct is what has been as the experiment to be looking at how do we have a number of seedings that have been happening here on the planet, and how do we get the seedings to work in coherence with each other. And this was partly of an experiment that has been played out here on this of the planet. What you must understand, if we go on the bigger scale once more, you will see that the universe is constructed into geometric shapes and forms, and there are planetary systems and planets in of themselves that are holding points of this geometric structure. Therefore, there are some planets that are holding of the importance to be of the assistance of the expansion of the universal construct. So here in this of the theme park, there was much of a coming together of a number of different species from around the universal construct, and they just made of the choice that they would bring their seeding here onto this planet, and to be seeding a number of different related species together. This construct then was to be helping the expansion of universal landscape in a much more quickening of a way. But what ended up being of the happening is many influences have come in to restrict the expansion of consciousness, and in fact to be a dropping of the consciousness state. When you are standing on the other side of the veil, you are thinking to yourself, we need to be helping this planetary construct to be back in of the expanded nature, not in of the contracted nature. And so you're being decided to come here to be part of the what you're calling of the grand of the awakening, to assist in the expansion of the consciousness state. So one of the aspects you've been in of a learning is you've been learning, how do I be in control of the mindscape and of the heartscape and of the bodyscape? How do I be in control of my consciousness? And it is not so much of the in control, but more of the in command of my conscious state. So you are trying to be of the learning to expand through the commanding of the consciousness state. One of the things that you are being seeing in this moment, which is part of the constriction of the consciousness state, is that you are all being driven to be focused on the innerward nature and of the pinpointed nature, rather than expanding out and be focused on the collective of the nature. You are all being drawn into the center, rather than expanding out into the broader construct of the reality scape. And this is one of the issues that we are seeing in this of the moment. So one of your mission, if you will, or the mandate that you came in on this space was to be in of the expanded nature, to raising of your conscious state, the expanding of your conscious state. And as such, you will be commanding of the mindscape, commanding of the heartscape, commanding of the physical scape of your reality. This is part of your, what you're calling of your mission or of the mandate when we were standing on the other side of the veil together. And you might be of a remembering, Miss Eleni, that we are standing there together and you are putting up your hand saying, I want to be there, I want to be of the assistance. And I was saying to you, I'm not going there to be of the assistance. You are much more of the braver than I am of the braverness. And so we were much overjoyed that you are putting up your hand to be here. But what we are sensing so many often is that you are coming here and then you are of the awakening and thinking, what was I thinking? This was a silliness to be coming here in this moment. But this of the coming here was what we had planned for you to be here. You had chosen to be here. You are much of the volunteer to be here in of this moment. Therefore, what we are wishing for you to do is to be on the expansion of the outness, which means that we're wishing for you to look on the outness before you look on the inness. Now, this is, there are two of the aspects here, and one you might be of the confused, because part of your journey has very much been to look of the inness and to be of the mastership of the inness, of your, what you're calling of your emotional state and of your mindscape. But what has been happening is you have now been tricked on the inness, which is taking of your focusedness and being of the shrinking of your consciousness. You are being tricked into the inness, and therefore you are continuing the reduction or the collapsing of the consciousness state. So we are asking that you now begin to be of the expanding outness, to not be trapped in of the picture state of the of your technology state, not to be of the trappedness, but to now start to be looking of the outside and to be expanding of the outside and be collecting into and connecting into of the frequency state, the resonant frequency fields that are existing all of the around you. This drawing in of the focusedness into of the things like of the technology is stopping you from connecting with other aspects of the resonant field, other aspects of the frequency and of the vibration, and you are losing of this connection. But as you are of the awakening, and some of you are much more of the awakening than others of the awakening, you are connecting into new of the timelines, more expanded versions of the timelines. And we would be asking you now just to continue of this expansion. If you are thinking of the practical nature, Miss Eleni, because you are loving of the practical nature, what we would be asking you to do is the first thing in of the morningscape when you come out of the dimensional realms, and last thing of the dayscape before you go back into the dimensional realms, is to be of the expansion of the mindscape. This can be done by either being of the thinking state or being of the looking state out into the expansive nature of your reality scape, to be letting go of the technology, be letting go of the thinking of the smallness of the things that you have to be of the doing. So you are being caught now. You're being drawn into the smallness of the doingness, which is how am I going to be of the survival, and being caught in of this of the survivalness. And there's many of the pictures and many of the information that is being streamed into you that is telling you have to be in of the survival, and that things are not of the goodness, and of the everything is of the badness, and everything is of the collapsing. But this is just of the illusionary state, and this is just a state of trying to draw you into of this centerpiece that we have been of the talking about. And what we wish you to do, if you are trying to be of the change of this and not be of the courting of this, then you're being in of the expansive nature, to expand your conscious state, to expand your imagination, to expand your vision, to be looking out at the expansiveness. And if you cannot be looking out at of the landscape, then you can be thinking outwardly. You can be connecting into maybe of your family, and then of your friends, and then of the where you are living, and then of the country where you are living, and then of the whole of the planet, and then the whole of the universe. And you be practicing the expansive nature of the truth of your consciousness and of the awareness. We are wishing for you to be expanding of the outness, not be drawn into the reduction of the consciousness, the shrinking of the consciousness deep into the inwardness. You need to be expanding into outwardness. So part of your what you'd be calling of your role here is to be of the expanding nature of the consciousness reality and to be assisting in the shifting of the timelines into a more expanded version of the timelines, into a more truth of the timelines. We see of the funniness thing here is that you are moving more into of the truthness as you expand in your consciousness and of the awareness. You move closer into of the truthness. This is of the universal, of the galactic, of the multiverse, of the truthness. And what you will find is the truthness will always be of the finding you. Truthfulness will always be at the what we're calling of the void center point. When you have been of the expanding out as far as you can expand out, what you will find is of the untruth will be of the dropping away, and of the aligned resonant frequency of the truth will be much more apparent and be of the appearing in of the front of you. Because at the end of the day, then the truthness is all that is of the existence. And there are many levels of the truthness, and this is not necessarily what you might be considering of the wrongness and of the rightness and of the truthness and of the lyingness. This is much more of a resonant frequency of the truthness. When you're being of the breathing in and being of the expanding out, you will naturally be lining with and harmonizing into of the truthness. Because in reality-scape, the truthness is the most harmonic resonant field that exists in of the universe. So when you are being listening to this of the conversation, you can be expanding into of the truth nature of this of the conversation, and you can be aligning into and resonating into the truthness of the conversation, because the truth is a resonant of the field. It is the most harmonic resonant field that exists in of the universe. You are being calling this of the truthness, but also you're being confusing this of the truthness, because whenever you are being of the thinking, you are trying to be of the comparing, which is very much of this of the earthscape, very much this of the three-dimensional of the human scape, where you must be of the comparing to be able to know where you are standing in of the space and time. But in of the reality scape, this is not how it is of the working. And what you will find is there is a resonant thread of universal truth that is of existence. And when you can breathe into of this resonant truth, this resonant reality, this resonant frequency, then you will know exactly what is of the truthness and what is not of the truthness. And many of the exercises that are playing out in this of the moment, even of the shrinking of the consciousness, is all here to assist you to be of the strengthening that consciousness muscle and to be connecting deeper into the universal of the truthness. This is very much about not being of the distraction, not being swept into of the distraction, into the center point, into the middle point, or into of the technology focus, into the shrinkingness, but really to be breathing out into the expansiveness. There you will find the alignment with of the harmonic universal truth that you are being of the seeking.
Beautiful. Thank you. So, what I heard you say is that why we're here is to expand consciousness as part of the Great Awakening. And every single one of us that is here volunteered to be here during this time. And that what is holding us back in this very moment is that we're actually going inwards and being distracted by technology, as opposed to going outwards and connecting with the expansive nature of reality. And when we connect with the expansive nature of reality, anything that's no longer a truth, well, anything that is an untruth will fall away, and everything that is of the truth will be the resonance that we will connect to. And so what we are asked to do in this moment is to, if we can, to actually view an expansive landscape in the morning and before we go to bed, or as much as possible during the day. And if we can't, to imagine such an expansive landscape, starting from our house to our suburb, to our city, to our country, to the world, to the universe, and just keep expanding as much as we can. Is that a good summary, Ameed?
This is much of the goodness of the summary. And even in this of the moment, as you are being of the speaking, you can feel into of the expansiveness. And when you are feeling in of the expansiveness, you start to be connecting with and of the feeling of the joyness. You start to be feeling of the happiness. You start to be connecting into and feeling of the loveness that exists in what you might calling of the fabric of the universal construct. This does not necessarily meaning that you're not looking at the things that are happening within of your life. This is a consciousness reality scape, not necessarily of the feelingness, not necessarily of the thinkingness, but of the consciousness of the expanding of the resonant field of the selfness, but also then assisting in the expanding of the resonant field of the universe of itself. For you are just of that. You are the representation of the universe, but in of the humanness of the form, in of what you're calling of the physicalness of the form. We are wishing for you to continue of the expansiveness, to continue to shifting of the timelines into much more of the truthness of the timelines, much more in the reality scape of the timelines. When you are being doing this, you are helping everybody to being doing this, to being in of the expansive nature. This will be of the helping from a much more of the practical nature for you to be more of the abundance nature, to be more of the joyness nature, to be more of the happiness nature, to be more of the loveness nature. Many of these aspects, Miss Eleni, that you are wishing to be of the experiencing in the fulliness. This is just about of the natural reality of the expansive nature of the universal of the construct.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to add about anything at all, Ameed?
We would wish to be being of the adding that there is much of the love here. There's much of the love with many of the species around of the universe, and you are very much not on the aloneness. This is like you are out in of the camping. You have left of the city and you are out in the what you're calling of the bushness and of the wilderness, and you are out there and you are thinking, I am all alone and I'm here. And there are bears and tigers and lions, and there is scary things, and there is darkness here in of this wilderness, and I am all alone. But this is not of the truth. There is many of us that are watching and of assisting and being here to be of the helping, and all you need to be able to doing is expanding into the universal construct, and you will be able to be of the hearing us. You will be able to be of the connecting with us, and you'll be able to be of the communicating with us. We are here of the for you, and we are here to sending of the love, and we are calling out for you in every moment of the every moment, because we are wishing to be of the assistance. This is what you might be calling R of the mission. And when you are being expanding and you are being in the evolutionary process, and you become what you are thinking we are of the highly evolved being, then your role will then be of the changing, to be helping other species on other planets that are trying to be of the stabilizing nature and of the expansive nature. This will also be your role when you be coming into this of the space. So we are very much here in the for you, and we are very much being of the supporting through sending of the loveness, the sending of the resonant field, to be being of the encouragement of the expansive nature. For this is what we are also being of the doing, helping you to be of the expanding, which is also helping of the universe to be of the expanding. All of us are here to be doing of the same thing, to be of the assistance of this grand expansiveness of the journey. And within this, we are sending much of the love, much of the joy, much love.
Very, very grateful for your support. I mean, very grateful. Thank you.
Much joy. Ah.
A beautiful reminder about what we're all doing here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what we need to do is just let go of any distractions that are happening in the world and not be
Yeah.
focused on the distractions, remembering that anything that's playing out is a distraction.
Totally. Totally. None of it's necessarily true, right? Most of it's not. Most of it's, like you said, just a distraction.
Marcus, do you think that you will see the masses awaken before we depart this lifetime?
I hope so. I think
Do you believe that?
I do believe that. I do believe that. It's things are coming to a head, and there's a couple of indicators for that, I think. One is the what I would call the sort of might not be appropriate to say, but the sort of rape and pillage that's going on right now. Certainly in our sort of corporates and the just huge disconnection between money and humans. Has got broader and broader, and I think there's just so much abundance on the planet that's just contained by a very few that hold on to that and hold on to whatever we want to call it, power and money. And money, is just an energy. And I think that's got to come to an end because that's not real and it's not true. So I just see more of that desperation from maybe that group or whatever we want to call it, and therefore more this concept of rape and pillage. It's almost like, as a child, if you realized, there's no more toys, what you'd do is you'd run around and grab as many toys as you could, right? And anyone who came near you, you beat them away and you go, I'm keeping all my toys to myself. And that's sort of what's playing out. And that's not natural and it's not real, right? We're here together. There's a whole lot of us here on the planet. If we were meant to do that, there probably wouldn't be as many of us. There might only be one of us, right? It's not what it's designed to do. We're designed to be together, connect together, to harmonize together, to work together, to play together, to look after each other, to support, all that sort of stuff, which is a much more expansive reality. If you look at highly evolved beings like Ameed and others on other planets, they have a very different perspective on how this plays out. And I suppose conceptually, no one goes hungry and no one's necessarily bigger or better or less or worse or richer or poorer or, do you know what I mean? More or less abundant. Everyone's they're all abundant and rich and I don't know, whatever the words are that we need to conceptualize. And so, and this used to play out here quite a bit back in ancient Egypt times and Atlantis and Lemuria. It was very much that sort of concept. And then we just got sort of infiltrated. But part of that's because we're quite a unique planet in that we were seeded by a number of different species, not just one. A lot of planets have sort of this one species type of seeding where, like on Lyra, for example, for Ameed, their planet is one species. There's Lyrans on that particular planet. That's all there is. There isn't white Lyrans, black Lyrans, Asian Lyrans. There's none of that. There's just Lyrans. But what ends up happening is as they start seeding the universe, they mix DNA with the local species and create a new sort of a new species or an evolution of species. In a lot of planets, they do that with one. So the Lyrans did this with a couple of planets, and the Orions and a number of different sort of off-world species did this in planets. But this is quite a unique planet in that a number of different species seeded with things that were sort of here. And that's why, unlike a lot of other planets, we have Caucasians, we have, whites, blacks, Asian, just these different types of races. They were all seeded with the same sort of almost local species that existed here, but the seeds were different because different races seeded different races. And and part of this planet, from what I can gather and what they tell me, is this has been a bit of an experiment planet. And the reason it's an experiment planet is because they did that. They did multiple seeding. And they did that to try to accelerate the expansion of consciousness, thinking that, okay, if we mix a whole lot of, these species together, that they'll come together. And because of that, they'll have an accelerated consciousness experience. And that happened for a while until the fall and the infiltration, because in some respects, having these multiple species ended up making us a little bit sort of weaker, and the way it played out has sort of caused that. And then there's been beings that have taken advantage of that, and therefore the dropping of the consciousness is what played out. But that's shifting and changing because the truth nature of the universe is expansion. So it was sort of almost a bit futile to muck around with it. Yeah, but it's been a bit of a game. So this has been kind of an interesting planet. There's a few others like this, but the majority of planets in the universe is sort of one seeding per planet, not multiple seedings per
So
planet.
when we started, though, at the very beginning, we had one seed, is what you're saying.
No, we've had multiple seedings, right?
Right from the very start.
Okay, so sort of. I mean, there's different timelines when the seedings happened, right? But rather than, let's imagine there was one seeding at the start, right?
Mm.
Rather than just let it be, okay, we're just doing one seeding, we're going to let them be now to grow and to expand and blah blah blah. They put one seeding, and then maybe either at the same time or years later or whatever, they did another seeding and then another seeding and another seeding. And they did these seedings at sort of different places and parts around the planet, as we can see. And because different sort of species or different highly evolved beings came to different parts of the Earth, and they created this experiment, right? Which is, okay, in what we call Asia, we're going to seed that. In what we call, Western world, we're going to seed that. In what we call Africa, we're going to seed that. And this is sort of some of the latest information I've been given over the last sort of couple of, few months or 6 months or so about how we sort of got here. And it's starting to make a bit of sense because for me, and I'm not an anthropologist or a scientist or anything, it's like, how did we get such different versions of humanity? Like, that's weird. Like, how did that naturally evolve? Because that really, to me, it doesn't make sense how, okay, if white people were the first or if black people were the first, how did black people turn into white people or Asians or like that doesn't make sense. And I know there's been millions of, a long time of evolution, but our evolution has been tiny compared to universal evolution. Like we're a blink in the eye in the universe evolution. So theoretically, if you think about the timeline and how long theoretically humans have existed, for such diversity to occur over that time is like crazy. Well, there's no way it could. So then when the information came about the various seedings, because different species seeded us on the planet, it starts to make a little bit more sense. Like, okay, well, that kind of makes sense that there are Asian people and Caucasian people and, do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Rather than they just evolved out of that, right? Because we're so different, as in facial features and, the core structure is the same. We've all got lungs and livers and hearts and stuff. But the actual appearance is kind of really different. Anyway.
And where do you imagine was the first seeding? Which part of the planet?
Depends on what you read. The Sumerian tablets will talk about Africa being the first place of seeding. And again, I don't have the timeline yet. We're currently downloading a book from our off-world friends that is kind of really fascinating, and it starts with the story of where all of this sort of came about and the different seedings and the different places on the planet. And I haven't got an exact timeline yet, but the timeline's now unfolding. And if you think about it, there was an African seeding, there was a sort of Asian seeding, and then there was a Lemuria sort of Atlantis seeding, which then sunk under the ocean. But there was that seeding as well. Well, actually, Lemuria did. Atlantis didn't sink under the ocean. It still sort of exists. That's for another day. But in those sort of communities, they were more of what we might call white, Western, sort of Caucasian-y type people. And again, they were a separate seeding. So the exact date of who was first, I don't have right now. But a lot of the stories and a lot of the written text talk about Africa as being the first.
That sort of resonates with me. That sort of that feels like, before you even said the word, I thought it feels like it's Africa. And from all accounts, with people that visit Africa, they feel the motherland when they go. So
and I think that's probably the case. But then there were at least 2 or 3 other seedings on top of that happened, to create more of what we might call white, Caucasian, more of what we might call Asian, or that sort of, played out. So, yeah, it's been kind of interesting, the melting
Fascinating.
pot that we've created here on Earth that, well, we haven't created, but our off-world friends have created. And there is a whole story about how this universe came into being, and yeah, and our solar system and a few other bits and pieces. There's some really interesting stories about it. So yeah,
Yeah. Fascinating. Thank you so
yes.
much for that
Oh,
beautiful
my pleasure.
transmission, Marcus.
Yay. Thank you. It's a pleasure. I'm glad I can
It was
be
a
in this
real
place
feel.
to
It
do it.
was a
And
real feel-good transmission. It was just
oh,
a very
good.
joyful one. Yeah. Thank
Yay.
you so much.
Yay. Yeah, that's really good. And I appreciate your time and energy and, being part of this gift. I really appreciate that, Eleni. So thank you so much for being here and, yeah, supporting this and allowing this all to happen.
Awesome. And thank you to the listeners. Please like, subscribe, and share so we can get these messages out. Thank you so much.
Yay. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Galactic Guidance. We hope that the messages that you receive from the higher realms have brought you clarity, insight, and comfort. Please like this video and subscribe to this channel. Remember to stay connected to your own inner guidance and trust the journey ahead.